My younger sister Amy worked as a branch manager at First National Bank in Asheville. She was the quiet one in our family, the one who noticed numbers before she noticed people, the one who could spot a decimal out of place from across the room. So when she called me at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, voice shaking so hard I could barely understand her, I knew something was seriously wrong. Amy never called late. Amy went to bed at 9:30 and woke up at 5:15. Every single day, like a human alarm clock. The fact that she was awake, let alone calling me, made my stomach drop before she even said a word. "Rachel, listen to me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Don't say anything to Kevin. Do you understand?" Not a word. "Amy, what?" "Grandma's accounts. Someone's been draining them, systematically, for months, and the authorized signer on the secondary account." She paused. I heard her swallow. "It's Kevin." I sat up in bed, fully awake now. Kevin, our older brother, the golden child, the one who'd moved back to Asheville 2 years ago with his wife Stacy, claiming they wanted to be closer to Grandma after Grandpa died, the one who'd convinced Grandma to let them move into her guest house out back, the one who drove her to every doctor's appointment, managed her medications, answered her phone when we called. "How much?" I asked. "Over $300,000, maybe more. I need to pull the full records tomorrow when I can access the system properly." "But Rachel, there's something else. There's a power of attorney document on file. Grandma supposedly signed it 8 months ago, giving Kevin full financial authority. Grandma would never." I know. I sat in the dark, staring at the wall of my apartment in Charlotte, 2 hours from Asheville, 2 hours from my 74-year-old grandmother, and felt something cold settle in my chest. "How did you find this?" I asked. "Random audit. Her account got flagged because of the withdrawal pattern. Large amounts, always just under the reporting threshold. 9,800, 9,900. Classic structuring. My compliance officer brought it to me because he recognized the last name. Structuring. That wasn't just theft. That was a federal crime. Kevin wasn't just stealing from our grandmother. He was doing it in a way that suggested he knew exactly how to avoid detection. "Amy, don't tell anyone at the bank yet. Give me 24 hours. "Rachel, I have reporting obligations." I know you do. Just 24 hours. I need to talk to Grandma first." She hesitated. "Okay, 24 hours. But Rachel, be careful. If Kevin finds out we know, he might accelerate whatever he's planning." I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, pulling up everything I could find. I worked as a paralegal at a family law firm in Charlotte. I'd seen financial exploitation cases before, dozens of them. I knew the patterns. I knew how they started, and I knew how they ended, and the ending was almost never good for the victim. By 5 in the morning, I'd made a plan. I called my boss, Catherine Wells, the founding partner of our firm, told her I had a family emergency. She didn't ask questions, just said, "Take whatever time you need." I was on the road to Asheville by 6. Let me tell you about my grandmother, because you need to understand what kind of woman Kevin was stealing from. Eleanor Mitchell was a retired high school music teacher who'd spent 41 years teaching piano, choir, and music theory to teenagers in Western North Carolina. She'd married my grandfather Thomas when she was 22, raised 3 children, buried her husband 4 years ago, and never once asked anyone for help. Her house was a craftsman bungalow on a quiet street in West Asheville, paid off decades ago. In the living room sat a 1923 Steinway Model M grand piano that Grandpa had bought her for their 25th anniversary. She tuned it herself, kept it in perfect condition, played it every morning. Chopin, mostly, sometimes Debussy when she was feeling melancholy. That piano was her heart. It was also worth about $65,000. I mention that because it matters later. After Grandpa died, Kevin and Stacy showed up like angels of mercy. Kevin was 34 then, working remotely as a marketing consultant. He said they wanted to help, said Grandma shouldn't be alone, said the guest house out back was just sitting empty and wouldn't it make sense for them to be close by? Grandma, grieving and lonely, said yes. At first, it seemed like a good thing. Kevin drove her to appointments. Stacy cooked meals. They mowed the lawn, fixed the leaky faucet, took care of things Grandpa used to handle. But then things started to shift. I noticed it on my visits, which had become harder to schedule. Kevin always seemed to have a reason why this weekend wasn't great. Grandma has a cold. The plumber's coming. She's tired. You know how she gets. When I did visit, Stacy was always there, always in the room, always listening. Grandma seemed different, quieter, smaller. She'd glance at Kevin before answering questions, like she was checking to see if her answers were approved. Once, about 6 months before Amy's call, I'd pulled Grandma aside while Kevin was in the kitchen. Are you okay? I asked. You seem tired. She'd smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm fine, honey. Kevin takes such good care of me. Something about the way she said it. Not like gratitude, like a script she'd memorized. I should have pushed harder. I didn't. That's something I'll carry for a long time. I arrived in Asheville at 8:15 that Tuesday morning. I didn't go straight to Grandma's house. Instead, I drove to the county clerk's office and pulled property records. What I found made me grip the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. 6 months ago, Kevin had filed a deed transfer. Grandma's house, the one she and Grandpa had lived in for 43 years, was now in Kevin's name. The transfer document showed Grandma's signature, witnessed by a notary I'd never heard of, and listed the sale price as $1. $1. For a house appraised at $420,000. I photographed everything. Then I drove to Grandma's house, making sure to park down the block where Kevin wouldn't see my car. I walked up to the front door and knocked. Stacy answered. Her face did something complicated when she saw me. Surprise, then annoyance, then a smile that took about half a second too long to arrive. Rachel, what a surprise. Kevin didn't mention you were coming. It was last minute. Is Grandma home? She's resting. She had a rough night. I'll wait. I walked past her into the living room. The Steinway was still there, but something was wrong. I lifted the lid and pressed a key. Out of tune. My grandmother, who had tuned that piano religiously every 3 months for 30 years, had let it fall out of tune. That told me everything I needed to know. Stacy hovered. I made small talk. Asked about Kevin. About the garden. About nothing. While I looked around the room with new eyes, I noticed things I'd missed before. A camera in the corner of the living room, small, pointed at the front door, another one in the hallway. A Ring doorbell I didn't remember being installed. Grandma came downstairs at 9:30. She looked thinner than the last time I'd seen her. Her hair, always neatly pinned, was loose and messy. She wore a cardigan I didn't recognize, too big for her, like it belonged to someone else. But when she saw me, something flared in her eyes. Something alive. Rachel. She said my name like she'd been holding her breath and I was oxygen. Hey, Grandma. I hugged her. She held on too long, too tight, the way people do when they're drowning and someone throws them a rope. Stacy was watching from the kitchen doorway. I needed to get Grandma alone. Grandma, I brought those old photo albums you wanted. They're in my car. Want to walk with me to get them? There were no photo albums. But Grandma understood. She'd always been smart. Smarter than any of us gave her credit for. Oh, yes, I've been wanting those, she said, already reaching for her shoes. Stacy started to follow. I can help carry. We've got it, I said, and something in my voice must have been sharp enough to stop her because she stayed in the doorway. We walked down the block to my car. Grandma moved slowly, like someone whose body had decided to match the weight of what was happening to her. When we were far enough away from the house, I turned to her. Grandma, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you sign a power of attorney giving Kevin control of your finances? Her face crumbled. Not surprise, not confusion. Relief. The relief of someone who'd been screaming inside a soundproof room and finally, someone heard. He told me it was for my own good, she whispered. After your grandfather died, he said I needed help managing things. He said if I didn't sign, the state might take the house. He said I was getting confused, forgetting bills, and that this was the responsible thing to do. Were you getting confused? No. Her voice was firm. I was grieving. There's a difference. But Kevin kept saying I was losing my mind, and Stacy would bring up little things, like when I forgot where I put my reading glasses, or couldn't remember what day a doctor's appointment was. Normal things. Everyone forgets things sometimes. But they made it sound like I was falling apart. And the house? Grandma? Did you sign the house over to Kevin? She went still. What? The deed. Your house is in Kevin's name now. There's a transfer document filed 6 months ago with your signature. I never signed anything like that. Her hand gripped my arm. Rachel? I never signed anything about the house. I signed the power of attorney because Kevin said it was temporary, just until I felt better. But the house? No, never. My blood went cold. If Grandma didn't sign that deed transfer, then Kevin had forged her signature. That wasn't just financial exploitation anymore. That was fraud, forgery, a felony. There's more, I said. Your bank accounts. Amy found irregular withdrawals. Over $300,000, maybe more. Grandma's legs gave out. I caught her, helped her sit on a bus stop bench. She stared at the sidewalk, shaking. "My savings," she said. "Thomas and I worked our whole lives for that. 41 years of teaching, his pension, everything. I'm going to fix this," I said. "But I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" She looked at me with eyes that were clear and sharp and absolutely furious. "Tell me what to do." Here's what we did. First, I called Catherine Wells, explained everything. She was on the phone with a forensic accountant within the hour and had a judge's name for an emergency hearing by lunch. Second, I called Amy, told her to file the suspicious activity report immediately. She did, and the bank froze the secondary account within 48 hours. Third, and this was the hardest part, I took Grandma home and told her to act normal. Don't let Kevin or Stacy know anything has changed. Smile, nod, play the part of the confused old woman they thought she was. Because the moment they suspected we knew, they'd run. "For how long?" Grandma asked. "A few days, maybe a week." "Can you do it?" She straightened her spine, the same spine that had faced down 30 years of rowdy teenagers in a classroom. "I've been acting for 2 years. What's another week?" That broke my heart. Over the next 5 days, things moved fast. Amy pulled the full transaction records, $347,000, withdrawn in increments over 22 months. The money had gone into an account in Kevin and Stacy's names, then been funneled into various purchases. A new truck, Stacy's online boutique that had never actually sold anything. Payments on a beach house in Outer Banks that Kevin had told no one about. Catherine filed for an emergency protective order and got a court date within 2 weeks. The forensic accountant confirmed the power of attorney's signature was legitimate. Grandma had signed it under duress, but the deed transfer signature was a forgery. Not even a good one. The notary turned out to be a friend of Stacy's who'd notarized a document she never actually witnessed being signed. Then the FBI got involved. Amy's suspicious activity report had triggered a federal investigation into the structuring. An agent named Torres called me and said they'd been watching a pattern of elder financial exploitation cases in western North Carolina, and Kevin's name had appeared in connection with a real estate attorney who was under separate investigation. "Your brother may not be the only person he's done this to," Torres said. "We're looking at 2 other elderly homeowners in Buncombe County with similar deed transfers." I felt sick. My own brother, not just stealing from our grandmother, but potentially running a scheme against other people's grandparents too. The day we served Kevin with the protective order was a Thursday. I was there with Catherine, a sheriff's deputy, and Agent Torres. We knocked on the guest house door at 7 in the morning. Kevin answered in sweatpants, coffee in hand, looking like a man who had no idea his world was about to end. When he saw the deputy, the federal agent, and me standing behind them, his face went through every stage of grief in about 3 seconds. Then it settled on something ugly, something I'd never seen in my brother before. Pure, cold calculation. "Rachel," he said, "what did you do?" "What did I do?" I almost laughed. "Kevin, you stole $347,000 from Grandma. You forged a deed to take her house. You isolated her from her family. You installed cameras to monitor her. And you looked me in the eye at Thanksgiving and told me to stop visiting because I was confusing her. You weren't protecting her. You were keeping me away so I wouldn't see what you were doing. That's not what happened. It's exactly what happened. And the bank records prove every single dollar." The deputy handed him the protective order. He had 72 hours to vacate Grandma's property. The guest house, which sat on Grandma's land, was included. Stacy came to the door then, and when she saw Agent Torres's badge, she turned white as paper. "We need to talk about some deed transfers in Buncombe County," Torres said mildly. "Both of you." Kevin tried calling me 7 times over the next 2 weeks. I didn't answer. He left voicemails that cycled through every manipulation tactic in the book. First came confusion. "This is a misunderstanding. You don't know the whole story." Then, bargaining. "Let's sit down as a family and work this out." Then anger. "You're tearing this family apart, Rachel. You and Amy. You're going to regret this." Then finally, a voicemail that was just 30 seconds of silence, followed by a click. "I saved them all. Catherine said they'd be useful." The court hearing for the protective order was straightforward. The judge reviewed the financial records, the forged deed, the evidence of isolation, and made the order permanent. Kevin and Stacy were barred from contacting Grandma without a third-party mediator present. The deed transfer was voided. The house went back into Grandma's name. Grandma sat in that courtroom with her back straight and her hands folded in her lap and did not cry. She'd done all her crying in private, she told me later. She wouldn't give Kevin the satisfaction of seeing her break in public. The federal case took longer. 4 months of investigation. Turned out Kevin and Stacy had been working with that real estate attorney to target elderly homeowners across 3 counties. Not a massive operation, but systematic. 5 victims total. Combined losses of nearly $1 million. Kevin was arrested on a Wednesday morning. Federal agents came to the apartment he'd rented after being evicted from Grandma's property. He called me from jail that night. I almost didn't answer. I did, though. I still don't know why. Rachel. His voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I need help. No, Kevin. You need a lawyer. I can't afford one. They froze all my accounts. You can't afford one because you spent Grandma's money on a beach house and Stacy's fake business. You'll get a public defender. This wasn't supposed to happen this way. What way was it supposed to happen? You were supposed to get away with it? Grandma was supposed to die, confused and broke in a house that wasn't hers anymore? What was the plan, Kevin? What was the end game? Silence. Then, I was in debt. Bad debt. I owed people money. And Stacy said, if we could just access Grandma's savings, just temporarily, we could fix everything and pay it back. $347,000, temporarily. It got out of hand. It didn't get out of hand, Kevin. You made a choice. Every day for 22 months, you chose to steal from a 74-year-old woman who trusted you. You chose to forge her signature. You chose to isolate her from her family. You chose to put cameras in her home so you could control her. Those weren't accidents. Those were decisions. I know. I don't think you do. I was crying now, and I hated it. You were my big brother. I looked up to you. Grandma loved you more than anything, and you looked at her and saw a bank account. He didn't say anything. I have to go, I said. Rachel, please, tell Grandma I'm sorry. Tell her yourself, if she ever agrees to hear it. I hung up and sat in my car in the parking lot of a Walmart for 20 minutes, sobbing. Not because I felt sorry for Kevin, because I was grieving the brother I thought I had, the one who used to push me on the swings and help me with math homework and tell me I could be anything I wanted. That brother was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. Maybe he'd always been the kind of person who could do this, and I'd just been too close to see it. Kevin took a plea deal, 12 years federal prison, plus restitution to all 5 victims. Grandma's share was $347,000, though Catherine said we'd be lucky to recover half of it. Stacy, who cooperated with prosecutors and testified against Kevin and the real estate attorney, got 3 years probation and 200 hours of community service. She filed for divorce from inside the courtroom. The civil suit was separate. Catherine filed for damages totaling $450,000, covering the stolen funds, emotional distress, and legal fees. The judge awarded the full amount. Kevin would be paying it back for the rest of his life. Justice, Catherine said as we walked out of the courthouse. Not a perfect word for it, but it's what we have. It doesn't feel like justice, I said. It feels like math. She looked at me. That's the most honest thing a client's ever said to me. After it was over, I drove to Grandma's house. She was sitting at the Steinway, and I could hear the music from the driveway. Chopin, Nocturne, in E-flat major. She'd had it tuned the week after Kevin was served the protective order. First thing she did, before the court hearings, before the FBI interviews, before any of it, she called a piano tuner and got her Steinway back in shape. I sat next to her on the bench and listened. She played the whole piece without stopping, her fingers steady and precise, not a note out of place. When she finished, she kept her hands on the keys for a moment. Your grandfather bought me this piano for our 25th anniversary, she said. Did I ever tell you what he said when he gave it to me? No. He said, Eleanor, some things are worth more than money. Protect the things that can't be bought. I forgot that for a while. Let Kevin convince me that I needed to be managed. Needed someone else to make decisions for me. But this piano reminded me. I sat here every morning, even when I was too tired, even when Kevin and Stacy made me feel like I was losing my mind, and I played. Because as long as I could play, I knew I wasn't what they said I was. I put my arm around her. She leaned into me. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, I said. You saw it when it mattered. That's enough. I helped Grandma set up new accounts, got her a new financial advisor, one recommended by Catherine, installed a proper security system, one she controlled, with the code known only to her, me, and Amy. We removed Kevin's cameras and threw them in the trash. Amy came over every Sunday for dinner. I drove up from Charlotte every other weekend. We sat at Grandma's kitchen table and ate her chicken pot pie and pretended everything was normal, because sometimes normal is what you need before you're ready for whatever comes next. 3 months after the sentencing, Grandma received a letter from the Federal Correctional Facility. She showed it to me without opening it. "It's from Kevin," she said. "I can see his handwriting. Do you want to read it?" She thought about it for a long time. Then she set it on top of the piano, next to Grandpa's photograph. "Not today," she said. "Maybe someday, but not today." She sat down and started to play. Something lighter this time, a jazz standard, something Grandpa used to request. The notes floated through the house, through rooms that were hers again, in a home that bore her name on the deed, paid for with a lifetime of work that no one had the right to take. I watched her play and thought about what I'd learned. That love and trust aren't the same thing. That you can grieve someone who's still alive. That protecting yourself from family isn't betrayal, it's survival. That the people who are supposed to take care of you can be the same people you need protection from. And recognizing that isn't cynicism, it's wisdom. Kevin would spend the next 12 years thinking about what he'd done. Maybe he'd come out different. Maybe he'd understand. Or maybe he'd come out the same man he was when he went in, full of excuses and self-pity, convinced that the world had been unfair to him. Either way, that was his problem now, not ours. The letter sat on the piano for 2 weeks. Then Grandma moved it to a drawer. Then, one Sunday, she mentioned she'd read it. "What did it say?" Amy asked. "He says he's sorry. He says he understands if I never forgive him." "What are you going to write back?" I asked. "I don't know yet." She set her cup down. "But I'll tell him the piano sounds better than ever. He should know that the thing he couldn't steal is the thing that saved me." We cleaned up dinner. Amy washed, I dried, Grandma put things away. 3 women in a warm kitchen, doing ordinary things, reclaiming a life that someone had tried to take. Before I left that night, I stood in the doorway and listened. Grandma had gone back to the piano. Debussy this time. Claire de Lune. The notes were delicate and deliberate, each one placed exactly where it belonged. Some things break and can't be put back together. You accept that, you mourn it, and you keep going. But some things, the things you protect, the things you fight for, the things that remind you who you are, those things endure. They outlast the people who tried to destroy them. Grandma played until 9 o'clock, then closed the lid, turned off the lights, and locked the door. Door, her lock, her home. And in a prison in West Virginia, Kevin sat in a cell with 12 years ahead of him, learning the lesson Grandma had known all along. You don't get to take what isn't yours. And when you try, the music doesn't stop. It just plays for someone who deserves to hear it. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe to Karma's Roll, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the link on the screen. Thank you for watching.